In this video, we're going to take a look at the second generation Apple HomePod. We're going to talk sound quality, features, and if you should consider buying a HomePod. It took 5 years, but we finally have a follow-up to the original Apple HomePod. The original HomePod retailed for $350 and never really took off at launch, but it eventually gained a cult following on the used market as HomeKit and Siri became even more popular. The second generation HomePods come in at $300 each. When I saw that Apple had lowered the price, I was a little bit surprised that they would lower their price over what they started the original HomePods out for. But we found out that Apple lowered the speed of the Wi-Fi chip and they took the tweeters down from 7 to 5, so this made a little bit more sense why the price was lowered. The second generation HomePods have the classic Apple unboxing experience. In the box, we find the HomePod with the new detachable cable. This is a huge improvement over the original's fixed cable, and I'm thankful that Apple added it. The second generation HomePods sound great. They have a clear and bright sound that translates well for all genres. As a musician and a sound engineer, I really appreciate the fact that these speakers are designed to allow you to pick out all the different parts that make up the mix of a song. They sound incredibly full and have surprisingly powerful low end for the size of the speakers. The bass is surprisingly powerful for a speaker of this size, but don't expect subwoofer-like lows. The processing and computational audio keeps the bass sounding tight and focused without being boomy or overpowering. When you compare the sound quality of the second generation HomePod to the original, you might notice a slightly brighter, crisper sounding audio experience on the second generation. I prefer the sound of the second generation as it just sounds a little bit more present. When you compare HomePod Minis to the full-size HomePod, you definitely notice a huge difference in the sound quality. The new HomePods sound a lot smoother and fuller than the Minis, but the Minis still pack a surprising punch for their size. There's no question on sound quality when the two are being listened to side by side. I just find myself wondering if most people will notice a $400 difference between a stereo set of Minis or a stereo set of the full-size speakers. The overall volume out of a pair of stereo HomePods felt quieter than I expected. I was able to clock in at 82 decibels measured on my Apple Watch at about 4 feet away from the HomePods. In comparison on the Minis, I was getting about 78 decibels from 4 feet away with a pair of stereo Minis. This is definitely loud and sounds very full, but as you get into a larger room, you may find yourself with the volume turned all the way up and wishing you could get just a little bit more power out of the full-size HomePods. I have these in a great room with 11-foot ceilings and really bad acoustics, and these can definitely fill the room with sound. But I've found that as you get farther away from the HomePods, the quality of the sound and the impact that they have just dies down a little bit. But to be fair, I haven't found a single speaker I've been happy with in this room. The computational audio and the 360 degrees of speakers do a great job filling the room with sound, but again, I just feel like the overall quality can die off as the room gets bigger. The HomePods are sleek and have a full sound, but there's definitely several things you need to take into consideration if you're considering purchasing these. The new HomePods look great and I love the midnight color, but they still cost $300 each and the Minis only cost $100. I have a lot of people ask me if they should buy a stereo pair of HomePod Minis or just one full-size HomePod. And I think the answer to that question is you should just get a set of stereo HomePod Minis because they sound fantastic and you get the stereo effect in a wider soundstage than just buying one HomePod. Lots of reviewers are pushing buyers to buy 2 full-size HomePods or to buy none at all. I spent a while listening to just one HomePod, and the sound quality and experience is definitely there, but with Apple's push for spatial audio and Dolby Atmos as well as lossless audio, it just makes more sense to take full advantage of the higher quality music with the stereo set of speakers. But again, the single speaker has a fantastic sound by itself. The area where these truly shine is in a stereo pair and with an Apple TV 4K. You can pair these with an Apple TV permanently, and if you plug the Apple TV into your TV's ARC or eARC port, then all TV or Blu-ray or game system sound will pass through the Apple TV and play wirelessly into your HomePods. This is a super streamlined and sleek setup that sounds so good. The $600 price tag for a pair of these, as well as buying an Apple TV 4K, is definitely very pricey. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this isn't too far off from what other brands are charging for a premium soundbar experience. The Apple integration and the clean look pairing them with an Apple TV 4K is really hard to beat. I didn't notice any lag or lip sync issues when using the Apple TV 4K with the HomePods, whether I use my Blu-ray player or my smart TV. I've owned a Sonos Beam and the ARC, but to me, the HomePods sound just as good and they come in a sleeker package. I do miss the subwoofer options that Sonos offers, as well as the true play and more customization of treble and bass through their app, but Apple's computational audio does a great job giving you a very clean soundstage, and if it's at night, you can flip the switch to reduce the bass. I compared these to my full-size home theater setup, and to me, these sounded about 85% as good as using the receiver with the left and right speaker and a center channel and a subwoofer. But again, I was definitely missing the sound of my SVS subwoofer. The HomePods are just hard to beat because they take up so little space and they sound so good for the size they are. They could easily replace any soundbar that I've tried on the market today. I do think if you're used to full-size speakers with a receiver, you'll definitely miss the customization that you have through that kind of setup. And I really wish Apple would just release a subwoofer that would work with this. We talked a lot about sound quality and use with an Apple TV 4K. Now let's talk about Siri and some of the other features that the HomePods have to offer. Apple is still really pushing the Siri side of the HomePod, but I'm not really sure why. As of March 2023, Siri is still a mess. If you ask Siri to play music for you, then a lot of times Siri will say, "I'm sorry, this is taking longer than expected," or "I can't do that right now," and then you just don't get to hear any music. You can also ask Siri questions, but a lot of times Siri tells you that you need to look on your phone for the answer, and then you have to ask Siri a second time to pull it up on your phone. So it just makes the whole process longer and annoying and defeats the purpose of using Siri in the first place. Now, I am a huge HomeKit fan and I use Siri to turn off all my lights and to run different automations, but you can only run one automation or command at a time. So if you want Siri to turn off the lights in one room, you have to ask and then pause, wait for that to happen, and then ask another time. The only way around this is to set up scenes that you ask for Siri to trigger instead. Again, this just makes the whole process a little clunkier and not as smooth as it should be. Where the HomePod really works reliably and well is using AirPlay to play sound from your iPhone or iPad or your Mac. The U1 chip being added to the HomePod means that you can hand music off from your iPhone directly to your HomePod just by holding your phone up close to the speaker. Apple has added some updates and upgrades to HomeKit with the new second generation HomePod. I like that they added the thread border router, and they also added a temperature and humidity sensor that can be used for various smart home purposes. The HomePod also added sound recognition to listen for smoke and carbon monoxide alarms so that it can send notifications to your phone if you're away from your home. You can also use HomePods as intercoms through your house, but you can use all these same features we just talked about in both the HomePod and the HomePod Mini. So it's a big jump in price if you just care about features. So should you purchase a single HomePod or HomePod Minis, or should you just keep your existing first generation HomePod? If you have the first generation HomePod, I would only upgrade if you were interested in the new features that it has with the smart sensors, the temperature and the humidity, as well as being able to listen for smoke detectors and carbon monoxide alarms. Comparing a full-size second generation HomePod to a stereo pair of minis, the full-size definitely wins in sound quality and overall volume, but I have to give the edge to the minis due to the cheaper price and the stereo sound spread. If you're comparing a stereo pair of full-size HomePods to a stereo pair of minis, the full-size definitely wins in volume, tone, and overall sound quality, but it just doesn't feel like a $400 price difference to me. If you're just getting started in the world of smart speakers, just go for a stereo pair of the HomePod Minis. This will get you all the same smart home features that the new second generation HomePods have, but for a fraction of the price. And then if you find yourself wanting higher sound quality later on, then you can move the minis to different rooms in your house, and then you can get the full-size HomePods to enjoy the better sound quality. If you're a music lover, tech enthusiast, or a musician, then I would just go for the full-size pair of HomePods because you'll appreciate all the subtle differences in sound quality they have. To wrap it all up, I really like the second generation HomePods. Apple's created an incredible smart speaker with fantastic sound quality. I just feel like the price needs to be a little bit lower to narrow the gap in price between the HomePod Minis and these. The full-size HomePods definitely give a premium audio experience, but it's just not a dollar for dollar improvement over the Minis. Also, Apple really needs to get their act together and to fix Siri if they want to continue advertising it as being the driving force behind this speaker. If they could make those improvements and make HomeKit more stable, then these would be a lot easier to recommend. But at the end of the day, they're a great speaker if you're already in the Apple ecosystem, and I have no problem recommending them to someone who has the money to spend on them. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, then hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. If you're looking for another video to watch, then check out my review of the HomePod Minis. All products in this video are linked in the description below.